Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Azeem Digital Asks podcast. Really excited for this episode today. We're going to be talking about all things SaaS content marketing, and I can't think of anybody better to discuss this with than my amazing guest, Ryan Jones, which is who you are here to see and hear from. So I'm going to shut up, but before I do, as always, please like, rate, share, subscribe, tell a friend, knock on your next door neighbour and tell their dog to have a quick listen as well. Thanks very much. Ryan, welcome to the show, my friend.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Azeem. It's good to be here. Good to finally be on. I'm a regular listener. Love season one and love the first episode of season two as well. So yeah, well up for this.
I haven't paid him to say that, but thank you very much. So, for the people who are listening and watching who shamefully may not know about yourself, would you mind just giving a quick intro to you, who you are, what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as Azeem's mentioned, I'm Ryan. I'm the marketing manager at SEOTesting. So joined just over a year ago. It was April 2023 that I joined to help scale the marketing operations. And yeah, I'm here to talk about all things SaaS, all things testing. I love chatting all about that stuff on Twitter. Don't know whether I can swear or not. I was about to say my usual phrase, but
You
just
can,
about held it in.
absolutely. I'm the boss, so feel free.
In that case, I like chatting shit on Twitter about all those kinds of things. Yeah, excited to be chatting to you.
Good, good. Right, let's just dive right into it then. We're talking SaaS and we're talking, marketing. Um, but let's start from the very beginning. I'm conscious that I've got a handful of listeners who are very new to the industry. So for those who don't know, what is SaaS and how is marketing SaaS different to traditional marketing?
Yeah, so SaaS stands for software as a service. So the kind of top level overview is if you've got a business and you have any kind of like online software that you're selling, whether you're selling it generally like one time on basis, or the most usual case is subscription based, which is the same as what SEO testing is. But if you run online software and you're selling that in any way, shape, or form, then at least in part you operate a SaaS business, which is it's different in some senses to traditional marketing and different in and the same in other instances. But I think the key difference is that SaaS is, given that it's almost always subscription based, there's a heavy focus on different KPIs rather than what you might look at in traditional marketing. So there's a heavy focus on the number of leads that you're getting, what your customer lifetime value is, so how much you're making money wise for each of your customers, and then churn rate, so how often obviously people are leaving and getting rid of their subscription. Whereas businesses that operate on like a one-time purchase model, so your biggest example is like ecom, for example, then they're mainly focused on driving those like initial sales and then like building customer relationships from there. So just like focusing on the customer relationships, obviously for SaaS there's a big focus on like engagement in the first sense, but then we also have to place a massive focus on keeping our customers happy like before they join us and whilst they're with us, and then even after they leave as well, because there's always a chance that they're going to come back. Whereas some businesses might be more sort of focused on just getting as many people as they can in and then just keeping that funnel going with like the number of new people as possible.
Yes, that's super important. I think quite often people focus on the new without forgetting the people that they've already got. Um, I am curious to pick your brains in the form that you filled in for the show. You mentioned that you increased organic clicks, I should say, by quite a huge amount. So it was about 2.3k to almost 11k in just over a year. First of all, congratulations. That is seriously impressive, especially
Thank you
within
very
such a
much.
time range as well. So tell us all about it. How did you do it? What strategies really worked for you, do you think?
Yeah, so when I first joined, yeah, to give a bit of context, yeah, obviously when I first joined in April 2023, I think the number of organic clicks we had in that month was I think 2,383. And then last month, which was obviously June 2024, we did actually cross the 11,000 barrier, which I'm obviously very impressed by, and give him my ego a boost as a marketer. I'm always up for that kind of stuff. But yeah, going back to how we accomplished it, my first initial meeting with Nick on joining the business, Nick's obviously the founder. We went through one of like the main marketing strategies for us is maybe trying to go against the grain of other marketers in a sense. And you mentioned it as well in the last point is getting excited and focusing on like every new and shiny thing that comes along. Whereas we wanted to really drill down and focus on what works and double down on it. So for us, we found that content was a big win, even with the limited content that was going out on the site before I joined. It was a massive win. There's still lots of like high performing blog posts that we've got that Nick's written and Tiago's written before I joined. So there was a massive focus on increasing publishing cadence. I think our core values helped as well. We try and be a bit different. I'm not saying all businesses do this, obviously, but one of our core values is to teach everything we know. So we don't want to try and gatekeep any information, and we try and make sure that comes across in blog posts that we do. We'll always mention that there are other ways to do certain. So if we're talking about like how to do a certain thing within SEO testing, we're not just going to say that you can do it this way in SEO testing. We're also going to say that you can actually do this completely for free in Google Search Console. Your only problem is if you use Google Search Console to do it, it might take you 4 hours. Whereas in SEO testing, it's going to take you 5 minutes, and that's where we draw in our sales. But we want to give access to as much information as possible, even if it means people just going and using Search Console on the initial basis, and then the hope would be from there they realise how much time they could save by coming to us.
Hmm.
Given that we're an SEO testing tool, obviously testing as well is big for us, testing what works and then again doubling down on it. So a key example is we found that for our site, adding embedding videos in from YouTube really helps with increasing average position, click through rate, that kind of thing. So we now try and put a big focus on every sort of big blog post that we do. Tiago, who's a bit of a video wizard, he'll create a YouTube video for each of our blog posts that we'll then embed. And then I think an underrated one is relationship building as well. So you'll be familiar with obviously Aleda.
Hmm.
We've
Yeah.
got like a nice relationship with her, and she shares a lot of our stuff just naturally, which can help purely from like an SEO perspective of like when she shares it on SEO FOMO and that kind of thing, we get a nice little backlink. But just like organically making use of her list as well as our list and that kind of thing for that
Hmm.
stuff. So I think building relationships is a big win as well.
No, absolutely. And the point you made about time saving is such a huge thing. I'm conscious not to deliberately ask emotive questions as I work in SaaS as well, and I don't want to add my own thoughts on this. I'm keen to hear from you, and that's why the people are here. But the idea of time saving is massive. Like literally, if I'm looking for something for myself or anything, time has to be first. I want to be able to do what I do faster than how I would normally do it because then I can focus on all the shiny stuff. But anyway, too much
Yeah.
about me. Let's go back to you. So, you mentioned there about your approach and a couple of things that you did. I'd love to dive into that. So, how would you say that the approach is different when you're talking about content marketing for SaaS? How would you say that's different to other industries, for example?
Yeah. So when I think about it, I think there's probably sort of three main areas where it might be slightly different. One being the fact that with SaaS, as you'll know, there needs to be a massive emphasis on educational content. So we need to educate we basically our customers are going to have a range of complex problems that they want to solve. It obviously time saving being one of them. It might be stuff that current software that they're using isn't doing the job. So we need to make a big part of our content and focus it on how customers can solve the problems that they're going to have by using, in our case, obviously SEO testing, but like competitors of ours will do the same thing as well. So educational blog posts, like those traditional like how-to guides, webinars as well. And then I think there needs to be an emphasis on the actual like benefits that you can get and use cases as well. So we'll drill that down into ours. Obviously, time saving being the number one, but another big one is we feel like SEOs can feel a bit undervalued sometimes, and maybe they struggle to show the actual value of our work. So obviously, being a testing based business, we can allow customers to do SEO tests and then say, hey, I did this and it resulted in this very easily, especially when your KPIs are organic traffic and that kind of thing. But then for that kind of stuff, like to show the benefits, that's where it like then jumps into like customer success stories, case studies, obviously the traditional feature pages that all SaaS businesses need to have, and then personalization as well. Given that if you were to compare SaaS to e-commerce, for example, I always go back to e-commerce because I worked in e-com before. But whereas like if you're an e-commerce business selling, I don't know, like home furniture or something, you've got this massive rate like customer base that could be anyone. Like if you do like customer buyer personas, you could have anyone from like a single homeowner earning 30 grand, like they could be one of your customers, and then it could be like a 60-year-old who earns 790 grand or whatever. Whereas for SaaS, there's probably a more specific customer base that you need to focus on. So for us, it would be like agency clients, in-house SEO executives, consultants, and then that's who we generally try and focus on. So you need to then work on personalizing the content to suit that type of customer.
Yeah, absolutely. Personalization is key, and I think a lot of people in the SaaS game maybe skip over that part for various reasons. One of the things I'm keen to learn from you about is different stages and of the funnel, I should say. And I'd love to start with the top of funnel content. Something that you mentioned in the form before we spoke was about top of funnel content. Why do you think that's still important in your marketing strategy for top of funnel content?
I think the easiest thing to say is because for us it works still. I had a minor sort of LinkedIn debate with you might be familiar with Gaetano over in the States. He's quite big on LinkedIn and Twitter and that kind of stuff, and he put out a big LinkedIn post saying that top of the funnel content doesn't work anymore. So naturally, I had to disagree with him. I mean, we I like disagreeing with people occasionally, but yeah, we track the attribution for all of the people who will sign up for a trial of SEOTesting. It's a little bit messy, but one of the things we can see is so anyone who signs up for a new trial will generally be able to find out what page they first visited on our site, not necessarily the page that they were on before they clicked sign up, but the actual first page that they visited. And we can see plenty of examples where they've clicked on a blog post that we've written exclusively for that kind of top of the funnel market. So a couple of examples of we have a guide on some of the top browser extensions that you can use for SEO. So it's like it mentions our Chrome extension, but I think there's a big list of 25 tools, I think, maybe off the top of my head that we write about. And then yeah, we've got a lot of traffic and leads coming from there. But other examples include we've got like this massive library of GSC based content, given that our tool uses GSC's API. We've got like an article on keyword cannibalization tools that we can use, and in all of those articles we mention SEOTesting, but we also mention other tools as well. But yeah, I think it all just goes back to top of the funnel being important because it works. And then at the same time is in order to start moving people through the funnel, you still need to bring in those people at the very top of the funnel and then focus on it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And no names mentioned because we don't throw shade on this podcast, but that's a very big point you made there. But when you're talking about different options for things, not putting yourself first and also listing others is a really big point. Again, I'm speaking from my own behavior, but if I'm looking for anything and I happen upon a list, I'll always look at who wrote it and see if they put themselves first. Because for me, immediately,
Yeah.
that's not objective. I want to see a list of everything by someone who does include themselves, which is fine, but not putting themselves as like number one. Let's move on. Let's talk about the rest of the funnel. You talked about the top. How do you adjust your tactics for then different stages of the funnel, further down or in the middle? What do you do that's different?
Yeah, so we don't necessarily change anything when it comes to different funnel styles or parts of the funnel, but if you work in that sort of traditional, maybe not top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, but if you break it down into, I think it's HubSpot's model originally of awareness, consideration, decision, retention, and advocacy. If you kind of use those as your sort of starting points, your awareness stage is going to be stuff like your content marketing, social media, paid ads, even podcasts. Obviously, is a good example considering we're here on a podcast now. And then from there, that obviously consideration, it moves into webinars and demos that Nick does on like a weekly basis, case study stuff, email marketing. Like we've got a big email list of current subscribers, as well as people who have obviously used SEOTesting in the past and then have maybe left the tool but still have been on the email list, and then working towards them sort of making that buying decision. So that's when like the free trial model comes into play, which is why it's still obviously used by almost every SaaS business. Personalized demos if it might be a bigger customer, extended trials. So like in certain instances, if I'm at an event or something, I might put on my LinkedIn saying I'm here, and if you can come and grab me, then you can get maybe an extended trial, and
Mm,
then sort of obviously your sales follow ups, and then your sort of retention based stuff, onboarding programs, customer support, which we're big on it. Given we're a small team, there's all of us who chip in on support on a daily basis, check-ins with people who, even if they're just on trials, just like a check-in after a week or something and saying, how are you getting on? Is there anything we can help with? Which I guess becomes more difficult as obviously you get bigger, but we're still at the stage where we can do that sort of stuff. And then moving into different things as well, like so trying to gain that advocacy. One of our big ones is the affiliate program that we have,
mm.
which obviously works, and we get a lot of leads coming through from there. But so I don't necessarily say we change it depending on which stage people are in. It's just we just make sure we cover every area.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. So let me dig in then, because you talked a lot about your content marketing. What makes a successful piece of content marketing for you? What metrics are you looking at specifically to say, right, that was a success for us?
Yeah, so that kind of splits into two things because whilst I don't know, I'm trying to remember who I actually said this to originally, but I did make a comment once that whilst I am technically a marketing manager and sort of I'm the one responsible for different stages, I am still an SEO at heart. I
Mm,
think I may always be an SEO at heart, but yeah, my KPIs and the KPIs that we track are split into two. So we have obviously purely SEO based KPIs, and then we have more sort of business orientated ones as well. So clicks, impressions, CTR, keyword rankings for different keywords that we might be tracking, that kind of thing. That's all looked at. So if it's a specific piece of content that we actually put out, we maybe want to be able to look at it the next quarter and say, well, it's been published now for 3 months. It's had this many people visit it. It's had this many referring domains. We've had a referring link from HubSpot or whatever it is, and that kind of thing. So we track that, but then we obviously naturally have to track the business stuff as well. So as a more sort of bird's eye view, we track obviously MRR, ARR, the actual number of people that we have subscribed, customer
mm.
lifetime value, and then I think the big one for us is obviously churn, is trying to keep our churn low.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I've got a curveball for you before we carry on. There are people who I've spoken to in the past who work in businesses and places where they want to see an immediate result from a piece of content that they've put out. So they'll, let's say, publish a blog post, and then within a week they'll hear, right, how is this doing? Are we ranking? Why not? Why is it not success straight away? I wanted the success yesterday. if you've been in that situation, what advice would you give to somebody who's listening or watching right now, is in that situation thinking, right, this sounds great so far. You've talked about 3 months, we'll review it, but I work in a business where my boss or the CEO wants to see results like 20 seconds after I hit publish. What advice do you have for people in that position?
Yeah, and I have been in that position before actually. One of my first agencies that I worked at, obviously not mentioning any names, but we were in that position quite obviously like recently, and it was yeah, we published this, and we need to see this much traffic in this amount of time, otherwise it's a failure. And I think from my point of view, it comes down to maybe sort of a re-education of it, and trying to educate whether it's clients or line managers and that kind of thing, and
Hmm.
saying, look, we are right now just not in a position where we can publish a piece of content and have it rank in positions 1 to 3 or whatever in that space of time. And I think unless you're lucky to be in one of these like massively well-known industries with like websites with millions of views, and they're lucky enough to publish a piece of content and they have that authority to have it rank in like kind of straight away. I think for almost every other business out there, it's just not possible. So for us, it maybe, yeah, it's about maybe education, and saying, well, we don't necessarily have to track traffic straight away from Google or Bing or whatever it is, but we can get certainly get eyes on the piece of content. And one of the models we try and follow is, I'm sure you'll be familiar, is someone I respect very much, is Ross Simmons with
Hmm.
his create once, distribute forever model. And that works in obviously two ways. It's, as you say, you can have a blog post, and then you can turn that blog post into, I don't know, 5 LinkedIn posts, 5 tweets. You can do like a Twitter thread. I still call it Twitter and not X. I will never change.
Same.
But and then you could do a YouTube video, you could do a podcast based on this blog, like a podcast episode based on a blog post, and it's, you can get eyes on content without necessarily getting eyes on the content, if that makes sense. You can get eyes from other methods whilst that content takes the time it needs to rank, to get backlinks, to do all that kind of stuff that needs to happen in the background. Because even for us now, we might be like a highly authoritative company in the sort of very niche market of SEO testing, but it still takes a while for our content to rank. But whilst we do that, we make sure it's shared in other places, on social media. We do our YouTube videos about it and that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thanks for sharing that. A couple more before we unfortunately have to part ways. I think we'll end it on the SaaS points. It's one of the focuses of the episode.
Yeah,
Many certainly feel that, SaaS marketing, it's a long game, and it takes probably even longer than several disciplines to see any meaningful results. I've deliberately included that subjective part. What would you say to people who think it's SaaS is such a long game? What would you say to
I have a tendency to agree with them.
that?
I do agree with them. I do agree with them because we obviously we talked about it a little bit earlier. We've had this nice sort of traffic growth curve that all SEOs want to see.
Mm,
Almost like if you look at it from certain perspectives, it can almost look like that hockey stick growth in terms of the actual clicks that we've been getting. But and whilst the actual business metrics are going up as well, the business is making more money and that kind of thing. That's a slower process. So I think you can look at it from two perspectives. So if there are people out there that says SaaS is a long game and it takes a long time, and when you said meaningful, that's where I then focus on the actual business metrics, so MRR, ARR, lifetime value, all that kind of thing, because that I think
mm,
is the longer game. There's different things that play into that. Like SaaS has maybe a complex sales cycle or a longer sales cycle than certain things, especially if you're at that higher price point. You need to do all this work on building trust, making sure that people realize that you know what you're talking about, and you need to spend time educating potential customers on obviously how to use the product and what the benefits are. Then you've got to go through like customer onboarding and all that kind of thing. And sometimes that
mm.
might happen even before anyone's actually signed up and put any payment details in. But
Yeah.
whilst it is, in my opinion, a longer game, I think there's benefits to that. I think you can develop stronger customer relationships. You can have that chance to build like a higher customer lifetime value, a chance to actually build a bit of market leadership if you really invest in all your time and effort into becoming one of the sort of authorities in your niche. And then obviously with the better customer relationships comes obviously the chance to improve your product as well. One of our big examples is we have a Slack group of all our customers. So obviously one of the main goals in there is they can ask other customers, hey, we have this problem, how are we solving it? Or I've done this test and seen these results. Have anyone seen anything like different, or has anyone
Mm.
seen the same thing? And then a big part of the Slack group is we can release new features and do beta tests. Is we can release features to certain customers and say in that Slack group, we're releasing this soon, but does anyone want to be a beta tester first, and that kind of thing, and that's been really advantageous for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love the fact that you've like built a community of your users and allow them to sort of talk to each other. I think very few people I can think of are doing that. So it's great to hear that's a success for you. Last one for you before you give me the all important details about where people can find you and whatnot. If there are people listening and watching to this and they want to improve their SaaS marketing strategy, what advice do you have for those people specifically? What can they do? Let's say, for example, tomorrow morning after hearing this episode, or straight after they press stop. What can they do to be better?
I think the biggest one is if you're not currently doing it, you should start talking to your customers. That's a big one for us. Like whether if I'm at an event or on a Slack group or something, if I can have the chance to talk to one of our customers, then I will, because they're at the end of the day they're your North Star metric of are people going to be happy when they sign up? Is they could because they can tell you exactly how they're using the product, exactly what problems they're having that you can then work and solve. I think your customers are definitely the biggest point. One of the things we try and do as well is, and we have a bit of a like a memorable random kind of name for it, is we call them Sparkle Crews, but essentially it kind of just means try and build a network of other people in SaaS. Obviously, I'm not necessarily talking about like competitors or anyone like that,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
people who are in a similar space in SaaS space, and just build that relationship so you can, like, if it's WhatsApp or messaging them on Twitter and saying, hey, I've got maybe this problem, do you have any time to like jump on a quick call, or have you seen this before, or whatever, and you can ask them what they've been doing that's working, which I've found a lot of people are more than happy to be in on that, especially if you're not a competitor. And there's, for all the negativity that there is in sort of SEO, Twitter, and whatever, there's a hell of a lot of positivity too, and people are all
Mm.
about building people up and everything like that. And if someone has 5 minutes to help you, then they will. And I'm going to bring it back to testing because I work for SEOTesting. Is keep testing different things. If you have ideas, it could be like the smallest thing, like it all like the biggest one of our biggest content wins is obviously adding videos into our blog posts, and that came almost on a whim. And we did like a
Mm.
small scale test, realized it had positive results, and now that's like one of the staples that we do. So just if you have an idea, test it, and if it works, then double down on it until it doesn't work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great piece of advice. And testing is something that I don't think people do enough of. So it's great for you to end on that point. So yeah, look, thanks very much, Ryan. This has been a fantastic episode. Before you go, can't let you go without sharing like all the important details. Where can people find, follow, connect with you on social media?
Yeah, two biggest ones, Twitter and LinkedIn. You can find me. Twitter is at Ryan Jones SEO, and LinkedIn is just I think / Ryan G just Jones. But yeah, as long as you're not confusing me with the SEO of the same name in America, you can find me pretty easily on social platforms.
Bro, no, I'll add those links into the show notes. And yeah, I guess all that's left to say is, look, please do give Ryan a follow, connect with him, say thanks for sharing his knowledge and wisdom with you all. Please do like, rate, share, and subscribe. We're on Spotify video, which is where a lot of you seem to enjoy the video version. We're also on YouTube as well. We'll be back for another episode real soon. But once again, thanks for listening, and we will see you soon.